98.9 Nash Icon. It's Adam Webster. Happy Thursday. And a special guest from the American Heritage Museum in Hudson, Mass., which I had an amazing experience at a couple of weeks ago. Hunter Chaney, the Director of Marketing, Communication, and Education. Good morning.
Good morning, Adam.
First of all, the museum blew my mind. I thought it would be cool, but I didn't realize how cool. And your energy and passion was infectious.
It's an honor, Adam, really to be a part of the museum. It really is about remembering American world history, primarily around military history. It's a sacred place where people come to, of course, remember history and specifically to remember our veterans that served us. And it's a very unique museum. Only one really like this in North America.
The collection of aircraft and tanks and armored vehicles and weaponry, I didn't expect to see that much when I walked in. It was mind-blowing.
It's a jaw-dropper. The museum is laid out chronologically, so you're kind of, walking through history as you go through the museum. And so we actually start in the Revolutionary War. The meat and potatoes centers around World War II. About half the museum is around World War II. But it actually goes on into Korea, Vietnam, Gulf War, all the way up to current time. All the equipment, all the tanks that folks see, these are all original and originally restored, which is neat because what you're looking at is basically what it looked like at that particular time in history.
And not only are they originals, but every plane and every tank and vehicle on the floor and hanging in the hangar is functional, meaning they fly or they drive.
That's correct, yeah. When you see the tanks and aircraft static, it's neat. They're unusual, but when you see them operating, they take on a whole different character. Every now and then we take some out and we actually operate them, as we're going to do this weekend, over Memorial Day weekend, for our first living history event of the season. It's a World War II tank demonstration weekend. We'll have about a dozen tanks out on display, and roughly 6 to 8 of them will be operating through the course of the day.
And you can either watch them and or pay with the donation going to this incredible museum to sit and drive in one.
Yeah, we offer tank rides in some of the tanks. So we have an M36 Jackson. It's a big, heavy tank destroyer from World War II. We have the iconic M4 Sherman tank, most mass-produced tank in American history. And this World War II tank will be out and giving rides. And then we have another light tank, an M24 Chaffee. And so for folks that do want to make a donation, the tank rides go up from $195 a person. And you're, in essence, helping us keep these programs and keep the tanks running.
I want you to share some of the must-sees, and I'm going to start with the Holocaust exhibit, which was extremely emotional and touching for me, both the new VR exhibit and the train car, if you could explain those.
We've just completed our Holocaust exhibit, and we feature a really rare original German rail car. And this rail car was used all through Germany in the course of World War II. And we have a media piece that plays from inside the rail car and talks about the mechanisms of the Holocaust and how the Holocaust started and perpetuated, and the effects of the Holocaust. And then along with the rail car and the exhibit around the rail car, we also have a really compelling virtual reality experience called The Promise Kept. And this virtual reality experience basically follows a Holocaust survivor, Fritzi Fritzschall, and she tells the story of how she was captured at the age of 13 and sent to Auschwitz. From there, she went on to a slave labor camp where she was put into a slave labor factory. And she tells this story from her perspective, and it's really engaging and very important piece of history worth remembering. This is a unique way to engage people in this history, not only as a means to better understand the Holocaust, but this really acts as a catalyst, kind of a motivation to want to learn more about this.
Absolutely. And as someone who went to Hebrew school as a kid, and it's not something you skip into, right? You're forced typically as a child to go to Hebrew school and learn these things. And it's book learning, or you hear about the 6 million Jews, but it really doesn't resonate. An exhibit like this, it is really a different way of learning. I'm just getting the chills talking about it right now. It's a different way of visual and experiential learning.
The entire museum, we really try and touch on that. You know, there's that very well-known saying, Adam, that we impress on everyone that comes through the door. And the saying goes that, you know, for those who have forgotten history or aren't as familiar with it, are condemned to repeat it. And this museum is a real thoughtful reminder about all of this.
And I like the fact that you don't use the word celebrating war, because that's not what it's about. It's remembering and appreciating the freedom that war has given us and the pieces that are on display as a result. The Scud missile, for example, this is the only place you could see one.
Yeah, the Scud missile. You remember as we led up to the Iraq War, these weapons of mass destruction we were searching for, one of those was this Scud missile. And this one, you have to just envision it's this palatial, very tall, foreboding missile. And this one happens to be the only one in North America, only one on display.
What are some of the other must-sees? I mean, you should see it all, but if, you had an hour to go through this museum, which, by the way, is cheap money, and less for a senior and a veteran? The
adult admission is $22 per person, and then it goes down from there if you're a senior or a student. As far as the must-sees at the museum, there's over a dozen pieces in the museum that are the only ones in North America, and some of the more notable ones, for those who are really into German armor, holy mackerel. This is a unique place. We have one of Germany's heaviest tanks of World War II, the Panther tank. This is the only one in North America, and it happens to be facing off against a Russian tank, which is a big, heavy tank of World War II. This is a T-34-85. This tank is also the only one in North America, and there's some others. We have a Japanese Horo mobile artillery piece, which is the only one in the world. And for the airplane folks out there, one of the planes we have in this collection is a P-40 Tomahawk. And what makes this particular World War II fighter so special is that this is the last flying fighter that survived the attack on Pearl Harbor. And we have other aircraft like that. One of us that I particularly love, too, is this L-4 Grasshopper, was flown by a history teacher, Charles Carpenter, in World War II. And this is a small reconnaissance aircraft. Think of it like a little Piper Cub aircraft. And Charles Carpenter's role was to fly this plane out to search for German armor that would be approaching. And he'd report back the coordinates of where artillery was landing. But he got so frustrated with the fact that all he could do was watch things on his own volition, he ended up strapping bazookas to the small plane. And so where he had an opportune moment, he would pop the plane up and fire down on these tanks. And he actually ended up destroying 4 heavy tanks from Germany, and it really was kind of a David and Goliath story. And we have this plane hanging over the Panther tank in the Clash of Steel exhibit, and that's just a small sample of some of the rare relics that are in the museum.
Well, there's a lot more I do want to talk to you about, and you do have a lot of events happening this summer, so I would like to invite you back on the air to talk about some of those. I'm speaking with Hunter Chaney from the American Heritage Museum, the World War II Tank Demonstration Weekend happening Saturday and Sunday from Memorial Day weekend, AmericanHeritageMuseum.org for tickets and information. Hunter, please come back on later this summer to talk about some of the other events.
Absolutely, Adam. It'd be a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.